What if I told you that a seller in Beach Park may have left more than $120,000 on the table? And the investor who bought their home didn't do some massive luxury renovation, no brand new kitchen, no high end bathroom makeover, no room addition. So, no HGTV miracle here. They painted, changed some flooring, used virtually staged photos, and turned around and sold the home for a whole lot more. If you're a homeowner thinking about selling your house as is to one of these We Buy Homes for Cash companies, you need to watch this one to the end. Now, this property was a single family ranch in Beach Park, a suburb north of Chicago. It was a brick and vinyl home built in 1973, sitting on a large lot with a side drive and an attached two-car garage. It had 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and just under 2,000 square feet of living space. So this wasn't some tiny tear down or disaster property. This was a substantial home, good size, good features, good bones, good potential. And yet on October 30th, it was sold to a We Buy As Is for Cash company for $262,500. Let that set in for a second. Now, when sellers hear cash, as is, and quick close, it can sound incredibly tempting, especially if they're overwhelmed, stressed, dealing with an estate, tired landlord situation, repairs, or they just want the easy route. And that's exactly why these companies exist. They sell convenience, but convenience can come with a very expensive price tag. Because what happened next on this property is exactly why I always tell sellers before you sign anything with one of these companies, at least find out what your home could sell for on the open market, even in as is condition. Because this investor did not come in and perform some dramatic transformation. Their marketing with this property in the MLS wasn't anything amazing either. Here's their remarks: great Beach Park ranch home with updated flooring and fresh paint. Not much of a description, in my opinion. They said they didn't do any major renovations, but they did do one thing that matters a lot in marketing. They used virtual staged photos. Now, if someone watching doesn't know what that means, virtual staging is when empty rooms are digitally edited so they look furnished and decorated. So instead of showing an empty living room, the photo makes it look like there's a sofa, lamps, art on the wall. It makes it look really great online. In other words, the furniture isn't really there, it's digital. So when you get to the house, it's empty. And to be clear, virtual staging can be a legitimate marketing tool when it's disclosed properly. They have to disclose it, but it also shows you something more important here. Part of the transformation was not construction, it was presentation. So we're not talking about a 6-figure rehab. We're talking about basic cosmetic work plus some smart marketing with the photography. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I think that the virtual staging photos look great. But when you take a closer look, like at the kitchen photos, They didn't virtually stage really anything in there, so you can see the old cabinets. Same with the bathrooms, but the other rooms, when they virtually stage, everything looks brand new and modern. And it is a marketing tactic, which in this case, I think was a very smart move on the investor's side to pay the couple $100 for the virtual staging. Now, let's take a look at what happened once the investor put it back on the market. They listed the property on December 19th for $399,900. So right away, think about that jump. They bought it for $262,500 and put it back there basically at $400,000. Just 9 days later, on December 28th, it went under contract. Unfortunately, that contract fell through, possibly because of home inspection issues or attorney review stuff. So then on December 31st, they put it back on the market. Same price. On January 8th, they cancel it, relisted as a new listing, still for the same price, $399,900. Then on January 28th, they lowered the price to $394,900. Then on February 12th, they did another price change to $389,900. And finally, February 13th, it went under contract. And this is kind of out of the ordinary for these investors. The properties usually sell with multiple offers in less than a week. This one had a total market time of 61 days. I know you're waiting for the big reveal. It sold for $385,000. Okay, so let's do the math. The investor bought the home for $262,500. They sold it for $385,000. That's a difference of $122,500. Now, of course, yes, they had carrying costs. There were closing costs. There were realtor fees when they sold it. And yes, they spent money on paint, flooring, and the virtual photos. But even after all that, this is still a massive spread. And that is the part sellers need to really pay attention to. Because when a company buys a home as is, they want you to focus on your problem. They want you focused on the hassle. They want you thinking your house needs so much work, so this is probably the best I can do. But this beach park property is a perfect example of why that thinking can cost a homeowner a fortune. The lesson here isn't that every seller should fully renovate before they sell. That is not the lesson. The lesson is that many homes do not need a full renovation to attract a buyer. Sometimes all the property needs is basic cleanup, smart pricing, proper marketing, professional photos, and exposure to the open market. That's it, because exposing it to the open market is what drives the price up. It gives you access to more buyers, and more buyers creates competition, and competition is what pushes prices up. When you sell directly to an investor, you're removing that competition from the equation before your home even has a chance. And in this case, the investor proved there were buyers willing to pay far more for that house, even after some bumps with the first contract. And honestly, this is the part that bothers me the most. A lot of the people who sell to these companies, they're not doing it because it's the smartest financial move. They're doing it because they're stressed, exhausted, grieving, behind on maintenance, or just unsure of their options. That's why it's so important to talk to someone who can give you the full picture before you make any decisions. Because once you sign that deal and close, that equity is gone. It's not coming back. And then you get to watch someone else make money off the home you already owned. That's a painful pill to swallow. So if you're thinking about selling your home as is, please do this one thing before you call one of those cash companies back. Find out what your home could actually sell for on the open market. You may still decide that a cash offer is right and fits what you need, but at least make that decision knowing the true numbers. Because in a case like this beach park property, the cost of convenience may have been well over $100,000. And that's not pocket change. That's life-changing money. If you want help figuring out what your home might sell for as is versus selling to an investor, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you look at the real numbers before you make a move. And if you want more examples like this, real properties, real prices, and real proof of what sellers are leaving on the table, make sure you subscribe, because this happens way more often than people realize.